Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Horizon, watching the stars streak past through the main window. After 3 months of traveling faster than light, they had finally reached the edge of known space. This was humanity's first real journey into the galaxy beyond Earth's solar system. "Captain, we're picking up something on long-range sensors," said Dr. Lisa Grant from her science station. Her voice carried excitement mixed with nervousness. "It looks like artificial structures. Ships, maybe." Jake felt his heart speed up. After decades of wondering if humans were alone in the universe, they might finally have their answer. "How many ships, Lisa?" "At least 20, sir. They're massive. Much bigger than anything we've ever built." Commander Ben Torres looked up from his tactical station. "Should I power up our weapons, Captain?" "No," Jake said firmly. "We came here in peace. Let's keep it that way." He turned to the communications officer. "Amy, open a channel on all frequencies. Let's try to say hello." Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez worked quickly at her station. "Channel open, sir." Jake cleared his throat. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earthship Horizon. We come from the planet Earth in peaceful exploration. We would like to establish contact and friendship with your people." For several minutes, nothing happened. Then the ship's speakers crackled to life. A strange musical voice spoke in perfect English. "Earth Vessel Horizon, you will prepare to be boarded. Do not resist or you will be destroyed." The bridge fell silent. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. This was not the friendly first contact that humanity had dreamed of for so long. "Amy, respond to them," Jake ordered. "Tell them we welcome the chance to meet, but we'd prefer to arrange a formal diplomatic meeting." Before Amy could speak, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. Ben Torres called out from his station. "Captain, we're being scanned by some kind of energy beam. It's going right through our shields like they don't exist." On the main screen, the alien ships came into view. They were beautiful but terrifying. Made of what looked like crystal and metal fused together. Each ship was at least 5 times larger than the Horizon. The musical voice spoke again. "Your ship and technology are primitive but adequate. Your species shows promise as laborers. You will surrender immediately and submit to processing." Jake's mind raced. Processing laborers? These aliens weren't interested in friendship at all. "Amy, tell them we decline their offer. We prefer to remain independent." A different voice came through the speakers, harsher and more mechanical. "Independence is not permitted. Inferior species must serve the Zalathi Empire. You have 30 seconds to surrender or face destruction." Dr. Grant turned to Jake, her face pale. "Captain, I'm reading massive energy buildups from their weapons. Whatever they have, it's beyond anything in our databases." Jake looked around at his crew. These were good people who had volunteered for humanity's first real space exploration mission. They didn't deserve to die because some alien empire couldn't accept the word no. "Ben, what do we have for weapons?" Jake asked. "Mining lasers, sir. They're designed to cut through asteroids, not fight ships." "And our engines?" "Full power, sir. We're much smaller and faster than they are." Jake made his decision. "Amy, get ready to transmit a message to Earth. Tell them what we found out here and warn them that these aliens consider humans to be slaves, not equals." The countdown reached 0. The alien ships opened fire. What happened next would be talked about in human military academies for generations. The Zalathi expected their overwhelming firepower to simply vaporize the primitive human ship. Instead, Jake Morrison proved that humans had something the advanced aliens lacked: the ability to think creatively under pressure. "Hard to port," Jake shouted. "Use the larger ship as cover." Amy Rodriguez, thinking faster than she ever had in her life, rerouted power from life support to the engines. The Horizon shot forward like a bullet, slipping between 2 massive alien vessels just as their energy beams crossed the space where it had been. "Ben, target their sensor arrays with the mining lasers," Jake ordered. "Sir, those lasers aren't designed for combat." "Then we'll have to make them work." Ben Torres fired the mining lasers at the closest alien ship. The beams, designed to cut through solid rock, sliced through the crystalline sensor equipment like a hot knife through butter. The massive ship began spinning out of control, unable to track targets. Dr. Grant was working frantically at her station. "Captain, I'm analyzing their energy signatures. Their weapons are incredibly powerful, but they take almost 30 seconds to recharge between shots." 30 seconds, Jake repeated. "Ben, can you keep us moving for 30 seconds at a time?" "I can try, sir." What followed was the strangest chase in galactic history. The Horizon, tiny compared to the alien ships, darted between them like a mouse running between the feet of giants. Every time the Zalathi fired, the human ship was somewhere else. Amy managed to slice through the communication arrays of 3 more ships using precise laser bursts. Without sensors or communications, the massive alien vessels began firing at each other by mistake. "Message sent to Earth, Captain," Amy reported. "They'll know what we found out here." "Good," Jake said, watching another alien ship accidentally blast a hole in its neighbor. "Now let's get out of here." The Horizon shot away from the alien fleet at maximum speed. As they escaped, Jake heard something that chilled him to the bone. The aliens were talking to each other on frequencies they didn't think humans could monitor. Dr. Grant translated the conversation using the ship's computer. "They're calling us a pest species, Captain. They say we need to be exterminated before we can spread to other worlds." Jake stared at the alien fleet growing smaller behind them. Humanity had just learned that they were not alone in the universe. They had also learned that their new neighbors wanted them dead. "Amy, add this to the message for Earth," Jake said quietly. "Tell them to start building warships. We're going to need them." As the Horizon jumped back to faster-than-light travel, heading home with the most important news in human history, Jake Morrison didn't know that he had just fired the first shots in a war that would change the galaxy forever. The aliens thought they were dealing with primitive, frightened creatures. They were about to learn how wrong they were. 6 months after the Horizon's escape, the Zalathi Empire sent a follow-up fleet to what they expected would be empty space. Supreme Chancellor Vextar had been certain that the primitive humans would either flee their home system or simply wait to be conquered. The Zalathi scout ships arrived at the edge of human space and immediately sent emergency signals back to their command. What they found defied everything they knew about how inferior species were supposed to behave. Admiral Kevin Hayes stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, humanity's first real warship. Unlike the exploration vessel Horizon, this ship had been built for one purpose: fighting. In the 6 months since Jake Morrison's warning reached Earth, humanity had transformed itself from a peaceful civilization into something the galaxy had never seen before. "Admiral, we have 23 Zalathi ships on approach," reported Chief Engineer Carol Murphy from her station. "Same crystal and metal design as before, but these are smaller. Scout class, most likely." Kevin nodded. "Good. Let them get a nice long look at what we've built." The human fleet that faced the Zalathi scouts was massive. Over 300 ships floated in formation around Earth's orbital shipyards. Each one bristled with weapons that Carol Murphy had designed by studying the wreckage of Zalathi, technology that Jake Morrison had managed to bring back. Intelligence Director Frank Williams had spent months analyzing every piece of alien equipment they could find. His team had learned something important. The Zalathi were incredibly advanced, but they were also predictable. They built things the same way every time, following patterns that never changed. "Sir, the Zalathi ships are scanning us," reported Captain Steve Parker from his stealth destroyer. "Should we jam their sensors?" "No," Kevin replied. "Let them see everything. Let them report back what happened to their people when they decided to threaten humanity." The Zalathi scout commander couldn't believe what his sensors were telling him. These primitive humans hadn't just built a few defensive ships. They had converted their entire civilization into a war machine. Every asteroid mining station had been turned into a weapons platform. Every civilian transport had been rebuilt as a military vessel. But the most shocking discovery was the ships themselves. The human vessels looked nothing like traditional starship designs. Instead of the elegant, symmetrical forms that civilized species preferred, these ships looked like predators. Sharp edges, overlapping armor plates, and weapons that seemed to grow from the hull like claws and fangs. Colonel Linda Brooks commanded the first human Marines ever trained for space combat. Her soldiers had studied every piece of intelligence they could gather about Zalathi biology and psychology. They knew exactly how each alien species thought, what they feared, and how to kill them. "Admiral," Linda reported over the communication system, "our boarding teams are ready. Give us 5 minutes with one of their ships and we'll show you how to make them talk." The Zalathi scout commander tried to contact the human fleet. "Earth vessels, you will stand down and prepare for inspection. The Zalathi Empire demands compliance." Kevin Hayes smiled coldly. Frank responded to them. Intelligence Director Williams opened a channel to the alien ships. What he said next would be repeated in Zalathi nightmares for years to come. "Zalathi vessels, this is Earth Defense Command. You entered our space without permission. You threatened our people. 6 months ago, that might have been a mistake. Today, it's suicide. The human fleet moved like a pack of wolves closing in on prey. The ships didn't attack in the orderly formations that civilized species used. Instead, they swarmed the Zalathi scouts from every direction at once. Captain Steve Parker's stealth ships appeared out of nowhere, having been hiding in the shadows of asteroids. The Zalathi had never encountered stealth technology like this. Their sensors simply couldn't track ships that didn't want to be found. The alien scouts tried to fight back, but they quickly discovered that humans had learned from their first encounter. Every shot the Zalathi fired was anticipated. Every movement they made was predicted and countered. Carol Murphy's weapons tore through Zalathi shields like paper. She had studied their energy signatures and designed human weapons specifically to exploit weaknesses in alien defenses. What should have been protection for the scouts became death traps. "Target their engines first," Kevin ordered. "I want them alive long enough to understand what's happening to them." The Zalathi ships found themselves crippled but not destroyed. Then the real horror began. Human boarding parties cut through their hulls and poured into their ships like a flood of death. Colonel Brooks led the assault on the command ship. Her Marines moved through the alien corridors with a speed and violence that the Zalathi had never experienced. These weren't civilized soldiers following rules of war. These were predators hunting prey. The Zalathi scout commander found himself face to face with a human Marine. He tried to surrender, but Linda Brooks wasn't interested in surrender. She was interested in sending a message. "Tell your Supreme Chancellor something for me," she said, her voice calm despite the chaos around them. "Tell him that humans don't run from bullies. We hunt them." 18 of the 23 Zalathi ships were completely destroyed. The remaining 5 were allowed to escape, but not before human technicians planted tracking devices and recording equipment throughout their systems. As the surviving scouts limped back towards Zalathi space, they carried with them something that would shake the Empire to its core. Complete recordings of human combat capabilities and a message from Admiral Hayes. To Supreme Chancellor Vextar and the Zalathi Empire, the message began. "You made a mistake when you threatened humanity. You assumed we would behave like the other species you've conquered. You thought we would submit or flee." The recording showed images of the battle, human ships moving like living things, human soldiers fighting with a ferocity that seemed impossible. "We are not like the other species," Kevin's voice continued. "We don't surrender. We don't run. When threatened, we evolve, we adapt. We become whatever we need to become to survive." The message ended with a simple warning. Stay away from human space, or learn why Earth is called the planet of predators. When the scout ships finally reached Zalathi space, their reports sent shockwaves through the Empire. The Zalathi Council convened an emergency session. Council member Thexra of the insectoid Vorthax species warned that the humans showed signs of being natural predators, something the galaxy hadn't seen in thousands of years. Supreme Chancellor Vextar refused to believe it. In his crystalline mind, it was impossible for a primitive species to threaten the mighty Zalathi Empire. He ordered the Grand Fleet to assemble. 10,000 ships from 12 different alien species began gathering at the edge of Zalathi space. The largest military force in galactic history was preparing to crush humanity once and for all. But as Frank Williams had predicted, the Zalathi were making the same mistake they always made. They were following their patterns, doing what they had always done. They couldn't imagine that their enemies might have already planned for exactly this response. In human space, Admiral Hayes received the intelligence reports about the gathering alien fleet. He smiled grimly and turned to his staff. "Gentlemen, ladies, it looks like they took the bait. Carol, are our surprise packages ready?" Chief Engineer Murphy nodded. "Every single one, sir. They'll never see it coming. The trap was set." The Zalathi Empire was about to learn that when humans said they were predators, they weren't boasting. They were warning. Fleet Admiral Zorath of the reptilian Sarkin species commanded the largest military force the galaxy had ever seen. 10,000 ships from 12 different alien races filled space around the Kepler 4M42 system, where human colonies were supposed to be waiting for conquest. Instead, they found empty space and automated distress beacons broadcasting the same message over and over. "This is Earth Defense Command. We surrender unconditionally. Please accept our submission to the Zalathi Empire." Zorath stared at the tactical display with satisfaction. Finally, the primitive humans have learned their place. All ships, advance to accept their surrender. Captain Danny Kim watched the massive alien fleet through the sensors of his reconnaissance destroyer. the UES Phantom. His ship was hidden inside a hollowed-out asteroid, along with dozens of other human vessels. The humans had spent months preparing this system for the Zalathi arrival. Dr. Patricia Lee, the fleet's expert on alien biology, studied the approaching ships through her instruments. "Danny, I'm reading 12 different species in that fleet. Each one has different weaknesses we can exploit." "Good," Danny replied quietly. "Because we're about to exploit all of them." The Zalathi Grand Fleet moved into the system in perfect formation, just as their military doctrine required. They were so confident in their overwhelming superiority that they didn't bother with deep scans or careful reconnaissance. Commander Rick Stone waited in his bomber squadron. Inside the atmosphere of Kepler 442b, the gas giant's thick clouds hid over 200 human ships, all waiting for the signal to attack. Rick's pilots had trained for months to operate in the crushing gravity and toxic atmosphere that would kill most alien species. "All units, this is Admiral Hayes," came the voice over the secured communication channel. "Remember, we're not here to fight fair. We're here to win. Execute Operation Mousetrap." What happened next became known as the Kepler Massacre. Though no humans died that day, Captain Mary Johnson's electronic warfare ship began broadcasting signals that jammed Zalathi communications across their entire fleet. At the same time, her systems played recordings of alien death screams on frequencies that each species found particularly disturbing. The Krillian crystalline beings, who prided themselves on logical thinking, suddenly found their ship networks flooded with chaotic random data that made no sense. The Vorthak insectoids, who communicated through pheromone signals, discovered that human chemical weapons were making it impossible for them to coordinate with their hive mates. As the alien fleet stumbled in confusion, the real attack began. Danny Kim's destroyer burst from its asteroid hiding place, along with 50 other ships that had been concealed throughout the asteroid belt. They didn't attack the way civilized species fought, with long-range energy weapons and formal battle lines. Instead, they swarmed the alien ships like wolves attacking a herd. "Target the Sarkin command ship's life support systems," Danny ordered. Dr. Lee had learned that the reptilian species needed very specific atmospheric conditions to survive. Human weapons sliced through their environmental controls with surgical precision. Commander Stone's bombers erupted from the gas giant's atmosphere like missiles launched from hell itself. Each squadron knew exactly which ships to target and which weapons to use. Against the silicon-based Zerathi, they used sonic weapons that shattered crystalline structures. Against the water-breathing Aquarians, they used electromagnetic pulses that boiled their liquid-filled ship sections. But the most terrifying part of the human attack was the boarding actions. Sergeant Paul Martinez led Marine teams that had been specifically equipped to fight each alien species. They didn't just carry weapons, they carried fear. Paul's team cut through the hull of a Zalathi command ship and poured into the corridors like a flood of death. The aliens inside had never faced anything like human Marines in close combat. Humans moved faster than seemed possible, struck with more violence than any civilized species would use, and fought with a coordination that seemed almost supernatural. The Krillian officers tried to analyze human tactics using their logical minds, but human behavior defied logic. The Marines didn't follow any recognizable pattern. They adapted their fighting style to each corridor, each room, each enemy they encountered. How are they doing this? A Vorthak hive commander transmitted to his fleet. They coordinate without central control. They think like individuals but fight like a collective mind. The answer came from Dr. Lee's research. Humans were persistence hunters. On Earth, they had evolved to work together in small groups to bring down prey much larger and stronger than themselves. What worked against mammoths and saber-toothed cats worked even better against alien starships. Fleet Admiral Zorath watched his magnificent fleet being torn apart by creatures he had considered barely above animals. His tactical display showed human ships moving in patterns that made no tactical sense, yet somehow they were winning. "All ships maintain formation," he ordered. "Focus fire on the largest human vessels." But there were no large human vessels to target. The humans had learned from their first encounter with Zalathi forces. Instead of building massive ships that would make easy targets, they had built hundreds of smaller vessels that could swarm and strike like angry hornets. Captain Johnson's electronic warfare continued to disrupt alien communications, but now she added something new. Her ships began broadcasting recorded conversations between captured Zalathi officers, edited to make it sound like different alien species were betraying each other. The Sarkin fleet, already struggling with life support failures, heard what sounded like Krillian officers calling them expendable reptile slaves. The proud warrior race immediately turned their weapons on their crystalline allies, the Vorthak hives, unable to communicate properly due to human chemical weapons, heard fabricated recordings of other species planning to exterminate all insectoids after the war. The paranoid insect race began attacking everything that moved. What had been the galaxy's most powerful fleet became a chaotic free-for-all, with alien species firing on each other, while human ships darted between them, striking and vanishing like ghosts. Sergeant Martinez and his Marines had fought their way to the bridge of the Sarkin command ship. They found Fleet Admiral Zorath surrounded by the bodies of his officers, most killed by human combat knives rather than energy weapons. "Why?" the dying admiral gasped. "Why do you fight like animals?" Paul looked down at the alien commander with cold eyes. "Because animals survive. Civilized species become extinct." The battle lasted 6 hours. When it was over, fewer than 100 ships escaped from the Zalathi Grand Fleet. 10,000 vessels had been destroyed or captured, along with millions of alien soldiers and crew members. But the humans weren't finished. As the surviving alien ships limped away, they carried with them something that would haunt the Zalathi Empire forever. Complete recordings of the battle and a new message from humanity. Admiral Hayes appeared on every surviving ship's communication screen. "To the Zalathi Empire and all who serve it," he began. "You sent 10,000 ships to destroy us. We sent them back to you as wreckage and a warning." The recording showed images of the battle. Human Marines hunting alien soldiers through ship corridors, human pilots coordinating attacks that seemed impossible. "We tried to be peaceful," Hayes continued. "You taught us to be predators. We are very good students." The message ended with footage of human engineers studying captured alien technology, already adapting it and improving it for human use. Fleet Admiral Zorath, bleeding from wounds inflicted by human weapons, managed to send one final transmission before his ship's life support failed completely. "Council of Zalathi," he whispered. "Update all records. Classification error detected. Humans are not prey species. Repeat, humans are not prey. We are." The transmission cut off as his ship exploded, taking with it the last organized Zalathi military force in that sector of space. News of the Kepler massacre spread throughout the galaxy faster than light itself. For the first time in 3,000 years, the Zalathi Empire faced something they had never encountered, an enemy that learned from every defeat and grew stronger with every battle. In the depths of Zalathi space, Supreme Chancellor Vextar received the reports with growing disbelief. How could primitive humans have destroyed his grand fleet? How could inferior beings defeat the combined might of 12 advanced civilizations? The answer was simpler than his crystalline mind could accept. The humans weren't fighting like civilized beings. They were fighting like the apex predators they had always been, and they were just getting started. The destruction of the Grand Fleet sent shockwaves through the Zalathi Empire that reached every corner of their territory. For 3,000 years, the Empire had been held together by one simple truth: the Krillians were unbeatable. Now that truth lay shattered among the wreckage floating in the Kepler system. President Elizabeth Murphy stood before the United Earth Assembly, her face grim as she outlined humanity's new strategy. The woman who had once been a peace advocate now spoke of war with the cold precision of a predator planning a hunt. "The Zalathi Empire will not stop," she said to the assembled representatives. "They see us as a threat to their entire way of life. We cannot simply defend ourselves anymore. We must take the fight to them." General Alan Carter, her military advisor, stepped forward with intelligence reports gathered by human operatives throughout Zalathi space. The information painted a picture of an empire beginning to crack under pressure. "The Vorthak hives are questioning Krillian leadership," he reported. "The Sarkin clans are demanding answers about the Grand Fleet's destruction. Civil unrest is spreading across dozens of worlds." Elizabeth nodded. "Then we give them more reasons to doubt their masters. General, initiate Operation Apex." Operation Apex was unlike any military campaign in galactic history. Instead of massive fleets and traditional battles, humanity unleashed something far more terrifying: specialized hunter teams designed to tear apart the Empire from within. Captain Tony Martinez commanded the stealth carrier UES Nighthawk, a ship so advanced that it could travel deep into enemy territory without being detected. Hidden in its cargo bays were dozens of small teams, each one trained to hunt a specific alien species. Agent Susan Clark led Team Alpha, specialists in psychological warfare against the Krillians. Her team had studied captured Krillian prisoners for months, learning how their crystalline minds worked and what could break them. Specialist Gary Turner commanded Team Beta, experts in disrupting Vorthak hive communications. The insectoid species relied on complex pheromone signals to coordinate their actions. Gary's team could turn that strength into a devastating weakness. Dr. Nancy Rodriguez worked with each hunter team, developing strategies based on deep analysis of alien psychology. She had made a disturbing discovery. Every species in the Zelathi Empire had some form of fear buried in their evolutionary past. Humans were going to use those fears as weapons. The first target was Krylos Prime, the crystalline homeworld where the Empire's leadership lived in perfect, logical harmony. The Krillians prided themselves on having eliminated chaos and unpredictability from their society thousands of years ago. Susan Clark's team infiltrated the planet's orbital stations disguised as space debris. Once inside, they began their psychological assault. The Krillians woke up to find their perfectly ordered systems corrupted with random data, their logical networks infected with programs that made no sense. But the real terror began when the team started hunting individual Krillian leaders. The crystalline beings had not experienced physical fear for millennia. They had forgotten what it felt like to be prey. Council member Kethvar was the first to die. Susan's team found him in his private chambers, surrounded by logical puzzles and mathematical proofs. They didn't just kill him. They left his body arranged in a pattern that looked random, but contained hidden messages that drove other Krillians to madness trying to understand it. Meanwhile, Gary Turner's team struck at the Vorthak home system. The insectoid species lived in massive hive cities where millions of beings moved in perfect coordination. Gary's chemical weapons turned their greatest strength into their greatest weakness. The synthetic pheromones his team released caused chaos throughout the hive cities. Vorthak workers began attacking their own queens. Soldier castes turned on each other. Within hours, entire hive cities were consuming themselves in violent civil wars. But the most devastating attack came from Commander Jerry Brooks and his team of infiltration specialists. They had spent months studying Zelathi security systems, learning every weakness and blind spot in the Empire's defenses. Their target was the Zelathi High Council itself. Brooks and his team infiltrated the council chambers on the night of the Grand Assembly, when leaders from all 12 species gathered to discuss the human threat. They moved through the heavily guarded facility like ghosts, avoiding detection systems that had protected the Empire's leadership for centuries. The attack lasted exactly 17 minutes. When it was over, 3 council members were dead, including the second in command of the entire Krillian military. The killers had vanished without a trace, leaving behind only a simple message written in the blood of their victims: nowhere is safe. Supreme Chancellor Vextar convened an emergency session of the remaining council members. The crystalline leader's perfect composure was finally beginning to crack under the pressure of fighting an enemy he couldn't understand. "How are they doing this?" demanded Council Member Thexra, her insectoid limbs clicking nervously. "Our security is absolute. Our defenses are impenetrable." "Obviously not," replied the Sarkin representative, his reptilian eyes cold with anger. "Perhaps the great Krillian intellect is not as superior as we were told." The meeting erupted into accusations and threats. For the first time in the Empire's history, member species were openly questioning Krillian leadership. The humans had achieved in months what 3,000 years of oppression had never accomplished: unity against their rulers. Dr. Rodriguez watched the intelligence reports from her command center and smiled coldly. The psychological warfare was working exactly as planned. Each alien species was reacting according to their deepest evolutionary programming. The Krillians, faced with chaos they couldn't control, were becoming paranoid and erratic. The Vorthak, with their hive communications disrupted, were fragmenting into competing factions. The Sarkin warrior culture was turning its aggression against former allies, but the humans weren't finished. Agent Clark's team struck again, this time targeting Krillian research facilities. They didn't just destroy the installations. They stole the technology and left evidence that other alien species had been responsible. Specialist Turner escalated his chemical warfare against the Vorthak, introducing new compounds that made their queens infertile. The proud insectoid race faced the possibility of extinction within a generation. Commander Brooks and his infiltrators continued their assassination campaign, but now they were targeting mid-level officials and military commanders. The message was clear. No one in the Empire was safe from human hunters. The psychological pressure finally broke Supreme Chancellor Vexitar's crystalline composure. In a desperate move that shocked the entire galaxy, he announced the deployment of the Empire's ultimate weapon, the World Breaker. The World Breaker was a massive vessel capable of destroying entire planets. It had been built during the early days of the Empire, as a last resort against threats that conventional forces couldn't handle. For 3,000 years it had never been used. "If we cannot rule this galaxy," Vexitar declared in a transmission sent to every world in the Empire, "then we will deny it to the humans. The World Breaker will sterilize their homeworld and every colony they have established." The announcement sent panic through the Empire's member species. Many of them remembered the stories of worlds that had been destroyed when they first resisted Krillian rule. The World Breaker represented the absolute power that held the Empire together through fear. But in human space, Admiral Hayes received the news with grim satisfaction. "Finally," he told his staff, "they're desperate enough to use their planet killer. Dr. Rodriguez, are our people ready?" Nancy Rodriguez nodded. "Our infiltration teams have been studying that ship for months, sir. We know its weaknesses. More importantly, we know how to turn their ultimate weapon against them." President Murphy addressed the galaxy from Earth's rebuilt capital. Her message was broadcast on every frequency, reaching every species in known space. "The Zalathi Empire has shown its true nature," she said. "Faced with defeat, they choose to commit genocide rather than accept peace. This is why the galaxy needs to be free of their rule." The message continued with footage of human hunter teams at work, showing the precision and skill with which they had dismantled the Empire's power structure. "We did not start this war," Murphy concluded, "but we will finish it. The age of Zalathi domination is over. The age of freedom begins now." As the World Breaker began its journey toward human space, carrying enough firepower to crack planets and boil oceans, the hunters prepared for their greatest challenge yet. They had proven that humans could adapt to any threat and turn any weapon against their enemies. Now, they would prove that even the ultimate weapon was just another tool to be stolen and used by the galaxy's apex predators. The final hunt was about to begin. The World Breaker emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system, like a mechanical moon of death. The massive vessel stretched over 200 kilometers from bow to stern, its crystalline hull pulsing with energy that could crack planets and boil away atmospheres. Supreme Chancellor Vexitar stood on the ship's command bridge, his crystalline form reflecting the glow of weapon systems that represented 3,000 years of Zalathi technological advancement. Around him, the remaining loyal forces of the Empire had gathered for what he believed would be their final victory. "Begin the bombardment," he ordered. "Start with their outer colonies, then work inward to their homeworld. Let them watch their civilization die slowly." But Admiral Sandra Hayes was waiting for him. The combined human fleet hung in formation around Earth's orbital defense platforms. But these weren't the same ships that had fought at Kepler. Human engineers had been busy, incorporating captured Zalathi technology into new designs that pushed the boundaries of what was possible. Admiral Hayes commanded from the flagship UES Apex, humanity's most advanced warship. The vessel looked like it had been grown rather than built, its organic curves hiding weapon systems that defied conventional understanding of physics. "Admiral," reported Chief Tactical Officer Commander Jason White, "the World Breaker is powering up its main weapon. Target appears to be Mars Colony." Sandra nodded grimly. "All ships execute Operation Endgame. Let's show them what happens when you threaten Earth." The human fleet moved unlike any force the galaxy had ever seen. Instead of maintaining rigid formations, the ships flowed like a living organism, each vessel adapting its position based on the movements of its neighbors. Alien allies who had joined the human cause watched in amazement as the fleet demonstrated coordination that seemed almost telepathic. Dr. Martin Davis, head of human xenological warfare, had spent months studying the World Breaker's design through intelligence gathered by infiltration teams. His discovery would change the course of galactic history. The ship's greatest weapon was also its greatest weakness. The World Breaker's main cannon requires the ship to drop all defensive shields during firing, he had reported to Admiral Hayes weeks earlier. For exactly 47 seconds, it's completely vulnerable. Captain Roger Thompson commanded the modified research vessel, UES Darwin, leading humanity's most dangerous mission. His crew consisted of volunteers who knew they probably wouldn't survive the next hour. Engineer Chief Janet Kim, Weapons Specialist Craig Foster, and Navigator Lieutenant Karen Bell. Their mission was simple in concept but nearly impossible in execution: infiltrate the World Breaker during the battle and turn its own weapon. Against the Zalathi fleet, Darwin team, "You are go for insertion," Admiral Hayes transmitted. "Remember, you're not just fighting for humanity anymore. Half the galaxy is watching to see if freedom can defeat tyranny." The space battle that followed became known as the Liberation of Sol, though it was unlike any military engagement in recorded history. The Zalathi brought overwhelming firepower and superior technology. The humans brought something the aliens couldn't understand: the ability to turn their enemies' strengths into weaknesses. Commander White's tactical systems identified the World Breaker's escort vessels and began the dance of death that human pilots had perfected. Unlike the rigid battle doctrines of civilized species, human ships fought like a pack of wolves, coordinating their attacks through instinct and training rather than central command. The Krillian escort commanders tried to respond with logical, mathematical precision. But human pilots didn't follow mathematical rules. They fought with intuition, aggression, and a willingness to take risks that no sane being would consider. Captain Thompson's Darwin shot through the chaos of battle like an arrow aimed at the heart of the enemy. The small research vessel had been modified with captured Zalathi stealth technology and human engineering improvements that made it nearly invisible to alien sensors. "Janet, how long until you can crack their security systems?" Roger asked as the ship slipped between two massive Zalathi cruisers. Engineer Kim worked frantically at her station, her hands dancing over controls that interfaced human technology with alien systems. "Give me 5 minutes once we're inside, Captain. I've been practicing on captured Zalathi computers for months." The World Breaker's main weapon fired for the first time, sending a beam of pure destruction toward Mars colony. The red planet's defensive shields flared and died as energy equivalent to a star's core tore through space. But the colony survived. Human engineers had learned from every previous alien attack, building defensive systems that could absorb and redirect energy rather than simply trying to block it. Mars colony's shields didn't stop the World Breaker's weapon. They caught it and sent it back. Supreme Chancellor Vexitar watched in shock as his ultimate weapon's first shot reflected off the human defenses and struck one of his own escort ships. The massive vessel simply ceased to exist, vaporized by its own fleet's power. "Impossible," he whispered. "How are they doing this?" The answer came from Dr. Davis, whose voice crackled over the ship's communication systems. Somehow the humans had infiltrated even the World Breaker's internal networks. "You still don't understand," Davis said, his words reaching every being on the massive ship. "You think in terms of superior and inferior technology. We think in terms of adaptation and survival. Your weapons become our weapons. Your strengths become your weaknesses." Captain Thompson's team had successfully infiltrated the World Breaker through a maintenance port that Zalathi security had considered too small for any serious threat. They were learning that humans could fit through spaces that other species considered impossible. The Darwin crew fought their way through the ship's corridors against Krillian security forces who had never faced human soldiers in close combat. Engineer Kim carried specialized equipment designed to interface with Zalathi computer systems, while weapons specialist Foster cleared the path with weapons that had been designed specifically to kill crystalline beings. "Roger," Karen Bell called from her position at the ship's controls. "I'm reading massive energy buildups throughout the ship. They're preparing to fire the main weapon again." "Then we better hurry," Roger replied, leading his team deeper into the alien vessel's heart. The running battle through the World Breaker's corridors was unlike anything in galactic history. Humans moved through the ship like apex predators in their natural environment, using the aliens' own technology against them, and adapting to every new challenge they encountered. Janet Kim reached the ship's main computer core and began her work. The Zalathi security systems were incredibly advanced, but they had been designed to keep out other civilized species. They couldn't cope with humans who approached problems from directions that no logical mind would consider. "I'm in," she announced, beginning reprogramming sequence. What happened next would be studied by military historians for generations. Instead of simply destroying the World Breaker's weapon systems, Janet Kim did something that no Zalathi engineer would have thought possible. She turned the entire ship into a weapon aimed at the Zalathi fleet. The World Breaker's main cannon, designed to destroy planets, slowly rotated toward the Zalathi escort vessels. Supreme Chancellor Vexter realized what was happening and tried to stop it, but his logical mind couldn't keep up with human creativity. "Security teams to the computer core," he ordered. "Stop them!" But it was too late. Captain Thompson's team had already completed their mission and were fighting their way back to their ship. More importantly, they had proven something that would change the galaxy forever. No weapon was too powerful for humans to steal and use. The World Breaker fired its planet-killing weapon into the heart of the Zalathi fleet. Ships that had dominated the galaxy for 3,000 years simply vanished as their own ultimate weapon turned against them. Supreme Chancellor Vextar found himself facing Captain Thompson on the World Breaker's bridge, surrounded by the wreckage of his empire and the bodies of his guards. "You are not just another species," he said, his crystalline voice finally showing emotion. "You are apex predators among apex predators. How did we not see this?" Roger looked at the alien leader with something that might have been pity. "Because you forgot what it means to be hunted. You've been the hunters for so long that you lost the ability to recognize a greater predator. The war ended not with humanity's destruction, but with their emergence as the galaxy's new dominant force. The Zalathi Empire, which had ruled through fear and technological superiority for 3 millennia, collapsed in a matter of hours as their own ultimate weapon turned their fleets into cosmic debris. But unlike the Zalathi, humanity offered partnership rather than domination to the former empire's member species. The Vorthak hives, Sarkin clans, and even some Krillian factions chose to join a new galactic confederation based on cooperation rather than conquest. 5 years later, Ambassador Helen Carter, who had witnessed humanity's first contact with the Zalathi, now served as President Carter of the Galactic Council. She stood in chambers built from the ruins of the old Zalathi capital, addressing representatives from hundreds of worlds. "We prefer cooperation to conquest," she told the assembled aliens. "But